Hey everyone, and welcome back to the All Stars Club podcast. Today we have episode number 4. Before we get started, I do want to mention there's 33% of you that are watching on YouTube and are not subscribed. So if you are watching on the YouTube channel, please just press that little subscribe button down the left. It helps us out a lot. But today we have a very special guest. We've been trying to get this happening for a couple weeks now. He is a father, a husband, a mentor to a lot of different people, and especially a coach and a business owner. It is JD the Boss Hardcastle. I'll put the edit on.
Thank you.
So just to kind of get it started, we can go through a lot of different stuff. But my first question, and I'm very curious. So you grew up in Brentwood. A lot of people know that area, especially I do.
Oakley, actually.
Oakley. Sorry.
But I did go to high school in Brentwood. So.
Liberty High School.
Correct.
So just to kind of start off that process, what did training kind of look like when you were in high school? Because I know now there's a lot of different stuff with like the tech and all this kind of stuff. Like what would a day of training for JD be like in high school?
There really wasn't. Like we had our different seasons. We had football season, basketball season, baseball season. You do a little bit of stuff in between, play catch or whatever, but not nearly the resources that we have today.
So it was like mostly games,
we'd have games, but there wasn't I remember I did a couple lessons here and there in high school, but not like it is today.
Yeah.
We had a net and a tee at home, and I'd spend countless hours hitting off that.
Yeah.
My dad would hit me. We had a big property. He'd hit me ground balls every day.
Yeah.
Play catch with me. That was it.
Yeah.
That was it.
And then obviously we'll let you kind of talk about your playing career and your vast and very good playing career as that. But going into high school, when did it kind of become, this isn't really just a game that I can just play, like I'm actually good at this and this can take me somewhere? Like when did that start to happen?
I don't know. I think always in my heart, I knew that I don't know when it clicked, but I knew I wanted to be a professional baseball player.
Yeah.
Growing up, I played soccer and baseball up through until high school. And then I think my freshman year, I asked my mom, like, what do you think I'm better at? She's like, I think you're definitely better at baseball. So then, because I had a choice to do some fall, maybe it was 8th grade year, I had a chance to play either soccer that fall or competitive baseball. So I did a little bit more baseball that year and kind of started trying to focus a little bit more on baseball. But in high school, I played football, basketball, and baseball. I was able. It was easier back then to be able to do both, and I loved being able to play all 3 sports.
And was it just because like there wasn't much of a stigma that you had to play only baseball, or was it just kind of like accepted that you can play any sport? Because I know nowadays, like a lot of people only think that like the singular sport aspect is really what's going to develop people, but there's been a lot of studies and debunked it, and I know that you really believe in it, but like letting kids play different sports to kind of develop other areas, like was that not really, obviously nobody really studied it, but was it just kind of a thing parents did? Was like just go play other sports?
Yeah, I mean, you just had your seasons.
Yeah.
And so until I got into 8th grade or maybe even high school, there was no like fall baseball like there is now. There was no winter training. There wasn't, there was in Antioch, there was a place called the Batting Shack, and they had like 4 indoor cages, and that was as close, it was a treat to be able to go to those batting cages.
Yeah.
So we had that, and we would do that a couple times a year maybe.
Yeah.
Go get some tokens and hit in there, but it was nothing like it is today. So, you had your different seasons and you played whatever was in season.
Wow. And then so I have always wondered, like, what did college kind of recruitment look like? Because because obviously we have social media nowadays, anybody can come around and kind of really see anybody from anywhere.
Right.
But back when you were doing it, they had to come either see you or send someone to see you. So was that kind of like an awe moment, like, wow, there's somebody here to see me? Or was it just like a really cool thing that just happened?
Well, my recruitment, this is a whole nother podcast in itself, but like I wasn't a great baseball player in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I think I only at the varsity level. I ended up playing, for a while after high school and after college as a pitcher. But I think at the varsity level in high school, I only pitched 7 innings total.
Oh, wow.
And so
that's kind of great.
Yeah. So from a recruiting standpoint, I don't know where guys saw us, but I'd get a couple letters in the mail. And then I ended up going the junior college route because I really wanted to play baseball. I didn't have any 4-year opportunities to play baseball out of high school. So I had an incredible junior college coach. My first year was just okay there. And then, he put a lot of time and effort into me. His name's Mike Dutzman. He was amazing. And he really, helped kind of push me over the edge. And then the next fall of my sophomore year, I got, I was a late bloomer, so I had really developed and I started getting a lot of attention at that point, some phone calls, a lot of letters, phone calls, and then, guys were then, coming to watch me play at that point. And so, it was a lot different than it is today.
And I've always been very fascinated because I went to a 4-year out of high school, but I always did wonder what the JUCO route would have been like. So nowadays you hear like the JUCO bandit thing. There's a very big stigma by going to JUCO. There's and me and Cisco were talking about it the other day, but there's like this aspect of maturing. A lot of guys go to 4 years and they don't have that mature period. So a lot of them, and yes, there's the outliers that come in, they're very mature, they understand how it's done. But being 17 and 18, like how would you say important was that maturity piece for 2 years before you were able to go to 4-year?
From an athletic standpoint, it was huge. Like I said, I was a late bloomer, so I learned a lot my first year. I started to physically develop. I was tall and super skinny, and I started to put on weight and get a lot stronger. I think my maturity really kicked in between my freshman and sophomore year. I got to go play in this, it was called the Arizona Summer Collegiate League, and there was a lot of really good players there. We played all our games at Arizona State and at Grand Canyon University, and there was guys from all over the country that were on these different teams. That was my first time being away from home. I had to cook for myself, and then you had to prepare to play. And so I grew up and matured a lot, both as a person and as a baseball player during that time. And that's when I was able to come back the next year and really kind of,
be ready
and move towards my goals.
Yeah. And then so going into 4-year, what did that kind of like? Was it like an awe moment of being like, this is what I've wanted this whole time? Or was it kind of like, okay, no, this is just the next step to get me to where I actually want to go? Because I remember for me, like being in 4-year, I was like, whoa, like this is cool. Like you travel, you have game series, like practice midweek, like classes and all that kind of stuff. I thought that was a really cool aspect of it. But I always wondered, like, was it kind of just like, this isn't it? Like I got more in the tank.
Yeah. I think I always knew that I was going to be able to play professional baseball. It's something I always believed.
Yeah.
And so I knew there was going to be more after that. So I mean, I in whatever sport it was, whether it was football, basketball, baseball in high school and in college, like my favorite part of the day was practice. I just loved being out there and, that was a game to me. So, I mean, I guess during that moment, it was just another stepping stone to, where I wanted to get to.
And then so I talk about, because obviously I have friends that did it, but I never got the chance to be able to sign that paper. Is there a sense of like, because I've always wondered this, is there a sense of like, wow, the hard work actually paid off? Like I did it. And then to that point, like, does it make you more hungry when you sign that paper?
Were you talking professionally or college?
Professionally now.
Professionally, I mean, it's still like when in baseball, there's so many minor league levels that you haven't made it. You're just getting your foot in the door.
Yeah.
I specifically remember when the guy that signed me, we went to Applebee's, and we were going to sign at Applebee's after I threw a bullpen with them, and we went to Applebee's, and the thing at that time in college was I had completely bleached my hair.
Okay.
And so we had just signed the paper, and we were sitting there. And he's like, "Hey, I got 3 rules for you." And he's like, "Number 1," he's like, "Don't bleach your effing hair." He's like, and so we had not eaten yet. Yeah. And I always take my hat off when we eat and always put it down. But he said, "Don't bleach your effing hair." And he went through whatever his other rules were. And he's like, and I repeat, "Do not bleach your effing hair." And he hadn't seen me with my hat off at that point because I had it on the whole time. So our food comes. I signed the paper, and I'm excited to get started. And I was going to leave a couple days later, but I'm like, I'm not taking my hat off. And my buddy Joey Camarado was with us, and so he takes off his hat, the scout takes off his hat. Joey takes off his hat, and he says, "Hey, take your hat off." And I always do. It's just kind of how
You would
I was
always have
raised.
done it,
I
yeah.
always did it, and I acted like I didn't hear him. I was like, I took another bite. I looked around. He's like, take your hat off. And so I took my hat off. My hair was completely bleached white. He's like, holy sh! And he's like, that better be gone tomorrow. And so that was kind of my, that was
Welcome
that
to
was
the-
welcome to the show. Welcome to the minor leagues type thing. So that's a little story I remember about signing that day. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
that was a great day.
That's hilarious. And so I want the grind. Like we always hear about how it's not really a struggle because obviously you're living the dream. You get to play a sport that you played for your entire life and get paid to do it. But it is truly, and from the people that I've talked to that have done it, we have players that come in that still go through with that. But how much of a grind was it really, the mental fortitude to be able to play a 4-game series, get on a bus, 8 hours to the next series, and you're playing that next day, right? And then just kind of talk about how like that gave you an opportunity to also grow up in that factor because you had to do that, I guess.
Yeah, I loved it. To me, I was talking to a junior college guy last week. We did a golf tournament, and he's like, "Oh, it's a grind." I'm like, "It's not a grind if you love it."
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I look at it. It's not a grind if you love it. At the time when I was doing it, like we'd have 18-hour bus rides, and you'd roll into town at 11 a.m. and you'd have to be at the field by 1 or whatever it was. You'd been on the bus all night. We'd sleep on egg crates on the ground in the bus or the seats. It wasn't super comfortable, but I loved that time with my teammates. I enjoyed it. We didn't have cell phones. We weren't watching, we had VCR tapes in there. I must have watched Tombstone 700 times on and a couple other movies. But, I love that, mentally, the mental part of the grind is that you always want to take the next step.
Yeah.
And I think in your head, you're watching guys above you or whatever it is, and you're like, I could do that.
Yeah.
And I listened to Aaron Judge say this a couple years ago. Like I think when he was in AA, like his dad gave him the advice. He's like, be where your feet are.
Yeah.
And I think that I wish I would have had more be where your feet are. Like I said, I enjoyed the moment, but just like, just making the most out of where you are and not always trying to look forward, just being the best at where you are right now.
Yeah.
And then just keep working.
And that's a big thing. And I went through this myself, and I'm going to drop it back, even if you can answer this, whether you were high school JD or whatever. But in high school, for me, a lot of the guys that I had, and I had an injury, obviously, so the commitment and stuff came later. But seeing my friends be able to sign these papers and get scholarships and whatever it may be, knowing that you're at that same level as them or better in some cases, and I know it's a thing nowadays because of social media and you get all the posts and you get all the recognition. Was that really a thing? Because when you say keep your feet, and I wish I would have taken that advice too, because it's like if you just stay your own path and take that one step at a time, you're gonna get the results that you want.
Right.
But I took it as like, oh, I need to do better, like because he's doing that. Like then that's that whole comparability piece. Was that as much as a thing back then as it is now, or was it kind of just like, oh, good for you, I'll keep doing what I'm doing?
Yeah, no, it always is. And I don't know if it's a comparison is the thief of joy or something like that.
No, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Is that a saying?
I think it's like, no, it's 100. Yeah, it's, oh my goodness. I just said it the other day. Yeah, it's like comparison is the thief of joy. Like if you're comparing yourself, it's just taking your own pride.
So it's really hard not to do that. It's really hard not to do that in business and sports, whatever it is in life. Yeah. So it's really hard to see other, but I think when you can really become a good teammate and a good friend and really, hope for other people's success, I think that's I think that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And then so now I asked Cisco and I asked Avery this. Yours obviously way more down the road than theirs was, in mine especially. But when we got to the end of the playing career, was it a full head meet the end, or was it kind of I gradually accepted where I'm at, so now I'm going to leave?
When I was playing minor league baseball, I always kind of told myself, like, I'm going to play as long as I can until I don't think I can make it to the big leagues.
Yeah.
I could have played minor league, I could have played for a couple more years afterwards. Mm-hmm. But I remember it was, my wife had come out, I was in Jackson, Mississippi, and I threw 8 no-hit innings.
Oh, wow.
And then we brought in our closer. He gave a hit in the ninth, but we ended up winning 1-0.
Yeah.
And there was a couple, and that year I was in independent ball,
Yep.
so I was trying to get back with an affiliate, and there was a scout there, and he came up. He's like, "Man, I love watching you pitch. You're a competitor. You pitched awesome."
Yeah.
He's like, "But for your age and where you're at right now, your velocity's not where it needs to be." I had a shoulder injury after my second year and had surgery, and so I never got back. I didn't have the training resources we have now.
That's crazy.
Which
or the
obviously would've been a
medical
game
either that we have now too, right?
Yeah,
I would assume so.
Yeah. So, and I didn't have there's a lot of things with that, but
Yeah.
I just got to the point where he's like, I'm not going to be able to sign you. He's like, you can pitch tomorrow. You can pitch in the big leagues right now. He's like, but your stuff and your velocity, it's just not where it needs to be. And I kind of looked in the mirror and I'm like, you know what? There's not another, pole I could go run. There's not another weight I could lift, a ball I can throw that's going to get me where I need to be velocity wise. And this was just this scout's opinion.
Yeah.
But I think that was just kind of the general consensus of where I was at among any scout at that time with my stuff and age. And so at that point I was like, you know what, this has been a great ride, but it's kind of time I just got married. So I was like, it's time to start another chapter.
Absolutely. And so before we move on into the coaching and all the business and all that stuff, that's part of your career, what advice would you give? And like we talked about, like and if for those of you listening, like don't take it as a grind. Like what more of the advice would you give to an athlete that is trying to get into that?
There's a ton of advice. I actually posted something on our Instagram today, but a good mentor and friend of mine was Donnie Moore, and he just said that if your mind can conceive it and your heart can believe it, you can achieve it. And so for me, I didn't have this, big high school baseball career, highly sought after. Even my freshman year in junior college, it wasn't great. But I always believed. My parents were awesome. They were always there for me. Always kind of, they did whatever they could to help me out. So they always helped build my confidence to believe that I could achieve something. So, I think with especially with kids, I think a lot of people give up too soon.
Yeah.
I think that if you really believe in your heart, you can do it. That's one of the reasons I did start All Stars, because I believe that every kid that comes through these doors can play at college, and if they really pursue it passionately and wholeheartedly, like, they can achieve great things at this game. Not only all the life lessons that come through it, but I think that they could play baseball as long as they want if they're willing to put in the time and effort and energy.
Yeah.
And we have some great, we've had some great success with kids doing that. But ultimately, like, my thing is, like, if this is what you want, like, don't let anybody tell you no.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep going.
That's amazing advice. And then so now, moving out of your playing career, was it always I want to coach, or was there another aspect of, because obviously, and I have no doubt you wanted to stay within baseball. I don't doubt that, because most of us do. Like, it's just, if you play the game long enough, you want to do what you love forever. So was it always just kind of like, I'm going to get into coaching, or was there another avenue that you had thought?
Well, in the off seasons, like one year I worked at Costco, and I had to be there. Like one off season I had to be at Costco at 3. I had to work from 3 a.m. to 11, and
wow.
it was miserable.
Yeah.
And I did a couple other odd jobs here and there. But one thing I kind of learned how to do was start giving private lessons during the off season, and I would do them wherever. Like I would find a little patch of grass somewhere, or a mound, or a little league field. I went to University of Pacific here. There was always there's different gym spaces. I'd find my way into a nook and cranny in a gym or indoors, whatever, to kind of make things work. So I kind of, got a little taste for doing lessons and working with guys. I loved doing lessons. I did a ton of them during that time. So I really enjoyed doing that, but I think ultimately what I really wanted to do when I got done playing was coach college.
Okay.
And so there was at the UOP, there was a pitching job. The pitching coach job was open, and I talked to the coach at the time. He's like, hey, it's yours if you want it.
Yeah.
I said, awesome. This is what I want to do. I want to coach in college. I want to be a head college coach. And I said, well, tell me about it. He's like, well, it pays $10,000 a year. And I was like, whoa. Like I said, I just got married. I'm like, $10,000 a year. And he's like, yeah, but you could do some camps and clinics, to help, supplement your income. And I'm like, okay, well, to be a head college coach. You have to have your master's. I said, okay,
Yeah.
well, can I get my master's as well? And he goes, you can do whatever you want with that 10,000. And I'm like, no. I mean, can
As well
I
I'm
get
doing
it? Can I get it as part of the package? He's like, no, you'd have to pay for that yourself. And I'm like,
Wow.
man, just this isn't right
What
for
you
me,
thought,
right?
yeah.
So yeah, there's a long spiel about how kind of got into doing All-Star. I don't know if you want me to go into that.
do.
Oh, you do.
I do.
Okay. So after I got done playing, my wife was a professional volleyball player.
Oh, wow.
And so she had she got a nice contract to go play in Chicago. There was this four-team league, and we were she was playing on the AVP down in Huntington. So like in the off season, I go down there, and then so we put all of our stuff. When I got done with that last season, I put all of our stuff in storage down there, fully intent we were going to go to Chicago, load up a trailer, and I said I was done playing, but I was actually had a contract to go back and play with an independent team there
In Chicago?
In Chicago
Oh, wow.
as well.
That's perfect.
So I was going to play one more year while she was doing this, and so we rented an apartment in Chicago. Never been there, but we had rented an apartment in Chicago, and so we came back up. It was right around Thanksgiving, and the day before Thanksgiving, she got a call and said, "Hey, the league just folded.
The whole league?
The whole league was just done."
Oh, wow.
So we had gotten rid of a sweet apartment in
Yeah.
Huntington, which was 100 yards away from the beach. All of our stuff was in storage down there, and we were just sitting there going, "Man,
What now?
What now?"
Yeah.
So she had an agent that was trying to find her another professional volleyball. Like, I think the year before that, she had played in Puerto Rico.
Oh, wow. Sick.
Yeah, outside of the AVP season, and so she was going and training at UOP.
Yeah.
And at that time, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm done. I'm obviously not going to go to Chicago to do this." And so her agent was trying to find her a job, and she was coming to UOP to train. And then there was these batting cages in North Stockton called All-Star Batters Box. And a guy named Mike Conroy had been there for 20 years. And he was ready to get out, and he'd always be like, "Oh, actually, he first got me started doing some lessons
There.
because I had kind of met him when I was in Stockton, and
Yeah.
and he initially introduced me to David Cooper, who ended up playing in the big leagues for the Toronto Blue Jays. And I remember the first time I did lessons with David. He was 10 years old, and I remember talking to my dad afterwards. I said, "This kid's going to be a first rounder one day," and he ended up being a first rounder.
Awesome.
And you could tell at 10 years old, he was a very talented player. But I would go in and just hang out with this guy during the day because I had really nothing else to do when she would go train at UOP. And so he's like, "Oh, you got to buy this place for me." I'm like, no disrespect to Stockton. I was like, I don't want to be in Stockton. We had been at Huntington Beach. I'm like, I don't want to be in Stockton.
Yeah.
But we did that for a couple weeks. And every time I go, he's like, "You got to buy this place. You got to buy this place." I'm like, I don't want to be in Stockton, thanks.
Yeah.
And the place was an old, beat up. He had, and maybe I don't know if you could post it on there, but I'll give you some old pictures of the place. But like he had the zebra, like he'd keep everything. If you didn't see, like he had every NFL, NBA, baseball hat there was.
That's
thousands of hats. He was big into retail. He had the zebra pant, the Zumba zebra pants. He had all the starter jackets. He had all that stuff, and so he was trying to get me to take over all that in his batting cages. And so one night we were sitting there, and I think we were still waiting for her to figure out what was going to go on in volleyball. And I just prayed about it. I'm like, Lord, what's your will for me? What do you want me to do? And I woke up the next morning. I'm like, I need to buy these batting cages.
Wow.
It was really weird because I was like,
The whole time you're like,
I was
no.
like, no.
Yeah.
And so I kind of talked to Danielle about it, and then we discussed it, and then she got on board with it, which she loved being in Huntington.
Yeah.
But I think maybe she felt the calling too, I guess.
Yeah.
And so a day later, she got a contract to go play in France, and so. I talked to him. We kind of ironed out the details of me taking over, and so she went to. She was in France for like 6 months, and then after like a month, I was able to then go with her. So I was in France for 4 months or whatever.
Oh, wow.
And then while I was there, I was kind of just working on the business plan,
Yeah.
kind of my ideas. It was a cool opportunity to just kind of. We got to go around a ton over there and see some great things. We spent our 1-year anniversary back there, which was pretty awesome.
Sweet, yeah.
But yeah, I just worked on the business, and then turned around and we got back, and that September of 2003, which is 20 years, 20 years this month, we bought the place from the guy, and we bought basically a retail shop and 4 batting cages.
Wow.
And yeah, now
we're here.
Now we're here.
And so, obviously, like did you think it would be teams at that point, or was it just let's do private lessons out of the cage and see what happens?
Yeah, I loved doing lessons. I loved working with kids one-on-one. I always kind of felt there was a need for that, especially in this area. There were some places that did some small group stuff, but I thought I could get the most out of guys in a one-on-one type setting. I think there's some great aspects to the group training from a competitive standpoint, but when you give that one-on-one attention, I always loved doing that. And so yeah, I did a lot of lessons back then. People were getting their kids out of school early to come do lessons because it was just so booked. I would do lessons from probably 2 p.m. to 8 or 9 p.m. every single day, and then I would do so it was a lot. But yeah, I did not want to do teams. I didn't really have any idea to do any teams, and then I had a buddy, Darren Vigilon, who started coaching with this group called Star Maker out of the Bay Area, and they needed another coach. And so when I first got started, wasn't making a ton of money doing this, and so they offered me an opportunity to go out there and coach, and then just gave me an incredible team right away. Which I got to go to Cooperstown.
Oh, sweet.
My first, it was like one of my first tournaments I got to go to, and I was like, yeah, we need to do teams. So they gave me, at the time, Cooperstown was very hard to get into. There's only 60 teams, or maybe it was 46 teams a week at that point. But they gave me a bid, and then the next year we started with a Club All-Star, or actually it was called Star Maker Stockton that year. And then after that, we just turned it over into Club All-Star. But I kind of learned the team aspect of doing that. And I was very jaded because the guy that ran these teams would go out, and there wasn't teams on every corner like there is now. It was very condensed. It was very select. Only the best players kind of at the time were playing travel ball. And the team I had was stacked. Multiple big leaguers. And we never practiced. We just showed up and played.
Oh, wow.
And
Summer-esque.
Yeah, kind of. But, at 12, 13 years old. And I thought I was an amazing coach, because I would roll out there with these guys and we whoop on everybody, and I would obviously coach them in the games and talk about strategy and thought process and the mentality of playing, but I wasn't doing any coaching as far as practice goes. And so then when we first started, I was kind of in a rude awakening. Like I was like, we'll just do teams. They're gonna roll out and do great because I'm out there. And it took a while to realize that how important practice is and what we do, and which is the biggest thing that we do now. And I think our biggest asset is what we do from a training and development standpoint. But it took a little while to get there because,
So was it the first practice where you were like, oh wait, I don't know what's going on? Or was it kind of like, because I remember when I got here for the first time a couple months ago, like there's so much organization. There's a lot of aspects that are very clean and easy to what needs to be done. So I'm kind of curious, how was that trial and error period at first?
I don't know that there was a try. I don't know that there was an error to it. We could always get better, and I'm always trying to find ways to get better at what we do. But my biggest thing is we always try to have a lot of moving parts. I hate kids standing around for a couple minutes. You hit a ball to the left fielder, and everybody's standing there while he throws it in. And then you hit one to center, and or the same thing with ground balls. Drives me crazy. Or you have one batting cage going, and 11 kids waiting to hit in that cage. Like, I want kids doing stuff the whole time. I want to maximize. It's called ROT. Return on training time. I want them to get the most out of their time here, and it was always that way. Our resources are. We've been very blessed with so much help here and some incredible families through the years that have helped build this into what it is today. We didn't have the resources that we had at the beginning, so we had to make do. At the beginning, like our L screens, we had this these really cheap L screens that like if you hit them right, they would like just fall.
Yeah.
At first, our lighting was so bad at our facility that we bought yellow baseballs.
Oh, wow.
Actually, even before that, we were hitting Incrediballs because the balls were breaking the L screen.
Yeah.
So, it's so trying to work around that. Always trying to make the most of what we
Yeah.
had is kind of got us to where we are right now.
And so now going back to the coaching piece, so I have been very fortunate enough to be coached by you. A lot of other kids have. I've always been very fascinated with the way that you have you maintain a certain respect with kids and athletes, but it's very playful. It's very. I've always been very fascinated with the way that you can do that, but also at the same time demand a respect that is very. And you're not one of those guys that goes like, you need to respect me. Like there's always, and I noticed it when I was under you as an athlete that like, you just respected JD. He didn't ask for it. There was no kind of, he's going to be mean to me if I don't. It was very, and I now call it kind of like pro style-ish. Was that something that you had always been inherently good at? Or was it like like you said, your JC coach was a very big influence? Was it kind of learning from those guys?
I've had some incredible I think that I've been able to draw on some just incredible coaches that I've had through the years, all different styles. I don't know. I'm always trying to be just a better coach.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes I'm hard. I want to be able to have an open relationship with guys. I love to have fun out here while we are still very structured in what we're doing. I think one thing I realized at the beginning, and I think it's a little different in lessons, and I'm always try to hone this. I have a very sarcastic style to me in my coaching, so I think I'm being funny, but if they don't know that I'm trying to be funny,
it can be taken the wrong way.
I've really tried to be better at that because that sarcastic coaching is not a great style. But yeah, I try to I think if kids know that you believe in them and that you're truly there to help them, I think that you will get their respect right away.
For sure.
The kids that if you were to blow them off or not, I don't know, just not try. I want every kid here to be the best version of them they can be. I guess is my goal. To be the best people they can be, the best baseball players they can be. And I think that when parents and kids do realize that, I think that you get their respect.
And that's another aspect I thought you were always very good at, is that you weren't trying to you're not trying to make the best shortstop in California. Like you're trying to make a very respectful young man that is also a very good athlete, which I feel like a lot of coaches, and especially some that I've been, it's like, I'm only trying to make you a good baseball player. Like I don't care if you're a mean person. Like I don't care if you have no respect or anything like that. Like as long as you're good at baseball, that's all I care about. Which was one thing you focused on. Like you taught us the ins and outs of like the game, how to respect umpires, how to hustle down on a walk, like all these types of things that a lot of coaches don't necessarily do. Was that kind of brought on from your time playing and just kind of seeing how other people would react, or like more of, again, like the coach's side of it? Like you saw how coaches respected different people and stuff like that? Because I've always thought that was very fascinating how you're able to tie that life aspect into coaching as well as baseball. I've always kind of liked that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a good answer for you on that. There's no epiphany of like, this is what it's got to be. It's constantly evolving. And again, I think we just got to set standards for guys. Obviously, if we could have the best shortstop in California, we want to have the best shortstop in California. But I think that kind of ties into like the recruiting aspect of youth travel ball too. Is like, if you want to come play here, we're going to try to make sure that we have a spot for you. And if you play here, we're going to try to be, and sometimes kids have to go from a blue team, a white team, club team, whatever it is. Like the families that are loyal to us, I want to be loyal to them, and I want to be loyal to their kids, and I want them to be the best version of themselves. So I don't, and I want them to be, the best baseball player they can be. But, at the end of the day, like you're only going to be a baseball player for so long. And we've had some incredible baseball players come through here that are still playing today and highly successful. And then we have guys that are Navy SEALs right now, and dentists and attorneys, and man, you name it. Like we've had, and I've been able to maintain good relationships with a lot of these guys, and it's awesome to see them succeed outside the baseball field too. So, whatever aspect of the disciplines that they got through playing baseball, helped that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so being, and I asked BT this, but now and I'll go back first, but I've always, and especially when I was with you, there was always you know how to handle high level talent really well. There's an aspect, and obviously a lot of people think like, oh, that kid needs to be trained different because he's better than everybody else. But you kind of, and I could be totally wrong, but you kind of came out and was like, no, I'm going to coach that kid the same way as I would coach the other 13 kids that aren't as good as him. Just because he's better doesn't mean I give him more. Mm-hmm. How have you dealt with that kind of going through Club All-Star? Because you've had so many teams that have so many good players on it. And then to kind of tie that question into full, now with your son being where he's at and how high level of he is, how does that kind of coincide with being a dad but also being a coach?
Oh, that's a lot. No, I always try to, before he even started playing, is just have a well-rounded program that we're you're only as strong as the weakest link, and hopefully we don't have any of those weakest guys. So it's just kind of trying to find the right mix of when you do have a very talented player, you don't want to try to dumb a bunch of stuff down where where you're just doing basic stuff that he needs to be, doing more advanced stuff. But, you got to do it where he's going to be challenged, but then this guy here, he's got to work hard to try to keep up to it. And I think it's one of those things that, iron sharpens iron type of thing. And as long as these guys are out here, I like to make my practice plans and the things that I do, I try to make them as competitive as possible so that, I think competing is fun. That's why I always loved practice growing up is, so whatever, I make kids compete to pick up balls in the cage after their round, because that way they're not crawling around on their knees and shooting them and, then taking twice as long. So I'm like, hey, we're doing burpees, count how many balls you get in the bucket. I think that, as long as you can make it competitive, you're going to get the best out of kids, whether they're this kid or this kid. So just making everything as competitive as possible, I think, is the answer to that. Yeah. It's kind of gamifying everything that I can at practice.
Yeah, absolutely. So now moving on to your son, right? Obviously, Dax has been with Club All-Star since he was born. But how have you seen and not his progression, because obviously everybody can kind of see his progression, but how has your progression, not only as a dad, but as a coach, kind of gone as he's gotten to where he is now?
I feel like he's always loved playing. Like he was, I had a really great team we took out to Steamboat Springs, Colorado. I think he was 6 weeks old.
Oh, wow.
And he was out there. We have a team picture, and I'm holding him in Colorado. So he was like literally born on the field, and he was always out there. Man, I don't remember if you were on this team or not, but we were playing. Maybe you were on another team, but
probably
you may have been on. Which team were you on at 14? When I had Jaron and Gavin.
I was on that younger team.
Oh, okay. So I remember he was like 4, and I went. It was a championship game. I think we were playing NorCal at the time, and it was we were up like 1-0. They had guys on second and third. I went and did a mound visit, and all the it's so tense out there, and he came running out to the mound screaming, crying because he had eaten some like hot Dorito, like hot Cheetos or something like that, and his stomach hurt, and like. And the parents weren't very happy about that. But so he's been out on the field for a long time. So he started playing out here when he was 7, and I think as a parent, like I wasn't going to coach him at first.
Yeah.
And then my wife was like, hey, you have to, because I wanted to be able to sit back and kind of let him have his own experience. And she's like, listen, we obviously been doing this for 20 years now. And at the time, can't do the math, but we've been doing this for 13, whatever it is,
years,
whatever it is. Yeah, maybe it's more than that, but 15 years, whatever it is. And she's like, you put so much time and effort into other people's kids, you have to coach your own kid.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and it was great. And then I think he, if there was a stat on Game Changer, like his first 2 years, he led the country in fist pumps. Like he's always out there fist pumping. He'd strike somebody out or he'd get a hit. He's fist pumping, and So I think I was like, hey, you got to calm it down, and so I feel like I kind of like
corralled
him a little bit, where now I wish I would have just kind of let that go. And then being a coach having a kid on your team, I felt like I was always harder on him than I was other kids. I always expected and kind of demanded more out of him. And so I think I was pretty tough. I know I was very tough on him for a while. And it wasn't physically, like I didn't have to, it was just one of those things like, I think he would get disappointed if he wasn't successful at something.
Well, I 100%, because I know from having, obviously there's not anywhere near the level of where Dax is at, but like NorCal Titans, like my dad was my coach, and for some reason the words meant more when it was to me. Like he could be saying the same message to somebody else, but as his kid, like you inherently just take it, and it could be worse or better, and the words just mean more.
Yeah. No, it is, and they're a little sharper.
Yeah.
And I think it was and so like if I would never be upset if he would get out or make a mistake or something, but then when I'd see him like look at me and like look sad, I would get upset at that.
Yeah.
And so I would say and it would kind of derail his day. And so there was a specific instance when we were out here, and his first at bat, he popped up. And he came in, and he had like tears in his eyes. I think he was 11 at the time. And I was like, dude, you need to stop crying. Don't be a baby. And the rest of the day, he just was just out of it. And he was sad the whole day. And I kept jabbing at him. And this other kid later on in the day pitched for us, a very good player. And he got absolutely shelled. This other kid did. And he came in, I put my arm around him. I'm like, it's all right, buddy. Like, it's a tough day. And so I was explaining that situation to my wife afterwards. She's like, why don't you do that to your kid? And I'm like, wow. Like I was like, man, I can't do that because I don't want people to think I'm favoring my kid. But I'm like, you know what? I've been beating this kid up a lot. And so after that, I think that next year I stepped back from coaching his team and had him play with somebody else because I knew that I just needed to kind of now at this point give
just
him his
monitoring.
And it was right around that. I think it was around 5th or 6th grade. He just decided like he loves being out here. He's out here every day, and so for the last 5-6 years, he's out here 300 days a year. Whatever he's doing, and it's not. And 100% willingly. I've never said, "Hey, let's go to the cages. Let's do this today." He's always done it on his own, which man, I have a great respect for that. I love it. And during those times, I'm not sitting there going, as a dad, going, okay, I need you to do this with your feet. I need you to do this. Like, it's just father-son time. I'll just throw him 500 pitches. I'll play catch with him. I'll hit him ground balls, whatever it is he wants to do. And I'm not really coaching him. And so that's kind of how that's transitioned, and so it's been important. I think it's the last couple of years, I really haven't been in the dugout with him that much. And it's been awesome. I love just sitting back and being able to watch him play. And same with my daughter plays volleyball. I love just being able to watch your kids play and have fun.
And so now, coming kind of like full circle a little bit, what advice would you give to parents kind of handling either, it could be low-level athlete, mid-level, high-level athlete? What's an overarching message to parents to just kind of be able to, and it could be obviously like ultimately I've seen a lot of parents, they just want their kid to have fun. They just want them to enjoy themselves. They don't want anything bad to happen, obviously. But what would that message be to either kind of just get your kid in the right direction, or just as a parent, there's like, you just need to relax?
Well, I think number one, parents need to relax because, whether you're playing the September Slam tournament or whatever, like, 11U September Slam, it matters.
I'll say it. Me and Cisco talked about this like last week on the podcast, but it's like 12-year-old tournaments aren't going to matter in like 6 years. So like,
Yeah, they that's true, and I agree. But they do matter for the kid and the parent at that time.
true.
But in the big picture, it doesn't matter. So my overall message is like, let the kid keep getting better. And I want people to look at All-Star and sit there and go, I can't afford to not have my kid in that program because of the resources they have, because of the practices they do, because of the coaches. You know, I'm surrounded, but glad to have you on board. And Cisco and Avery and BT and Josh and David and what else am I missing? Thomas now and we've had a ton of great coaches come through here. I want people to sit there and go, that's where my kid has to be because you know they're gonna push my kid in the right direction. So number one, you got to be in a position where the kid's getting better. Let them have fun.
Yeah,
it's not life or death. You know, and ultimately, you know what you do at 12. Like I said, I was a late bloomer. Even Dax has just now turned 16, and he's had some success, but he's still got to keep getting better because wherever he's at right now, like if he wants to play at the next level, like he's got to be better 2 years from now, and he knows that, and so it's the long game. I think is what's important, and making sure your kids want to do it, not pushing them to do it, and you know, I see some families that'll come in. The one benefit to our program is like, hey. Mi casa, su casa. So like when we're not at practice or if we don't, you know, if there's open space here and we're here, like you're more than welcome to come in and use the cages all you want, the bullpen, the hit tracks, you know, hit ground balls, hit live on the field, like use the weight room. So, you know, and that's all just kind of built into the program. And so the kids and the parents that really take advantage of that are the kids that are going to, you know, really be successful.
And was that intentional, or was that kind of just an inherent way that the organization kind of grew itself? Because I know for a fact, and even my parents have said it before, but it's very family oriented. There's a lot of care for not just the athlete, but how the entire family is doing. Was that kind of a plan put in place, like we need to care about everybody, or was it just kind of an inherent thing that happened?
Well, I think that I thought, going back to my first team, I thought that when I put this together, like, oh, we're gonna have equal play time. Everybody's gonna love everybody, you know, a little trumpet.
The ELE.
I thought it was gonna be like that, and there's somebody's always not happy for whatever reason. You can't keep everybody happy. It took me a lot of years to realize that, but I do feel like because of the loyalty that we give to families here. I feel like, you know, they reciprocate that, and then, you know, I do want this to be a family atmosphere. We're not the team that's always out looking for the next best guy and bringing somebody in and then bouncing somebody. Like we really try to keep it a tight-knit unit here, and like we do our tryouts in July, and then we'll try to keep that same team if we can. We'll keep that same team together for 10 months. And grow, develop, families develop great relationships, lifelong relationships. Families, you know, that started back in 2003 that are, you know, didn't know each other before this. So they're the best of friends now and do stuff. And so, it's a great family atmosphere, and essentially nothing that I've done. It's just because we have awesome families that are a part of this place.
I wouldn't say nothing you've done. I would definitely give yourself more credit than that, because you are the driving force of what happens. I mean, whether you like it or not, you are a major key to what's happening. And like I said before, even the way you carry yourself in a way that's very, and obviously it's respectful, and it's probably the way you grew up by your parents and taught a bunch of stuff through life, but you have
I was spanked a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
just kidding.
Weren't we all? Especially if you're from Brentwood, Oakley area. It just happens. But like, you inherently teach good. Like, you know, you don't have any malicious intent. But I think the other part of that I always liked is there's no sugarcoating anything. Like, you're very honest, which is a very nice trait to have. And so now, that's a great tie-in. But I've always asked this, and this is probably a hot button question. But I was on a really good Club All-Star team. I had all luck to me, thankfully. I got to be on that team. But me and Avery were talking about it. What's the best Club All-Star team you've ever had?
Best Club All-Star team was are lost in the no disrespect. We've had a lot of great teams and a lot of really great players. But
It's a super hot topic question.
yeah, it was, and I don't even remember. These guys are probably juniors in college right now, but like they started at 9, and I had a majority of that same group through probably through 13 years old. But like at like the kids bought in, the parents bought in. And it wasn't because they were like super, they ended up being very physical, but like they were one of the best teams in the country.
Oh, wow.
And but yeah, they were, there's no name for it, they were Club All-Star, you know, whatever. But you know, there's a handful of those kids that are still playing in college, but they weren't like even super not all of them were super successful high school baseball players, but they played catch. They ran the bases. They threw a ton of strikes. They made every routine play. And a lot of fun memories with that group. And I don't want to name all their names because I probably missed a couple of them. But Dr. Jory's team was that 12-year-old team was probably the best team that we had. And they just that was a really fun group. And they refused. Like we have this hashtag R2L. Those guys refused to lose. Like they would. It didn't matter what the lead was. If somebody else had a lead in the last inning with 2 outs, they were going to find a way to win. And they left it all on the line. And that's kind of my mantra for everybody. I want everybody to just
leave it
flat out, compete. So.
And then, so just to wrap it up, we kind of talked about everything. But what's your future for Club All-Star?
I just want to I want to just keep doing what we're doing. I want to stay the course. Always trying to make the facilities and resources we have for these guys, you know, second to none in this area. You know, I want to, you know, continuity, stability. I love trying to just stay in this direction. So, just trying to keep doing the right thing, keep helping kids be the best they can be, and keep having great coaches such as yourself. You know, to help surround it, because I've realized through the years, like I think at the very beginning. Little side note here is like when we first had teams, I was in the dugout. I would set up our games. I was in the dugout every inning of every game. Like I was in there from 7 a.m. Saturday morning till 11 p.m. You know, Saturday night, and then back at it all day Sunday. Thankfully, my wife was cool with that because then I was working Monday through Friday. You know, like I would take like 2 days off a year, but I was in the dugout every time. So I've really had to learn to step back and let these other guys coach. And so I think that's the big thing is just, you know, making sure you have a good team around to help guide, you know, all these awesome players that we have in the right direction.
Absolutely. All right, guys, thank you very much for listening. This has been the Club All-Stars podcast, episode number 4. Again, 33% of you are not subscribed and are watching the video. So if you are a part of that 33%, please go to subscribe. Just press that little button. It does nothing to you. It helps us out a lot. But if you liked what you listened to, please replay it. All the replays are great. Once again, this has been JD Hardcastle on the Club All-Star podcast. Please go subscribe as well on applepodcast.net. And then we will see you guys next week. Thank you guys very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Noah.
You're welcome.